Hello and welcome to this download from Blackwell Online. My name is George Miller, and my guest today is philosopher Mark Rowlands. But if that makes you think of someone who inhabits the rarefied atmosphere of an ivory tower, think again. That Mark is no ordinary philosopher is clear even from the titles of his previous books, The Philosopher at the End of the Universe, and Everything I Know I Learned from TV. His latest book is more extraordinary still. The Philosopher and the Wolf describes the decade that Mark spent in the company of Brennan, a wolf he found advertised for sale in a small ad. I asked him how the story began.
Well, it was my first job, or my first real job. I was teaching philosophy at the University of Alabama, and I was having a great time, but as it looked like I was going to be there for a while, I thought I might get myself a dog. You know, I sort of grown up with dogs most of my life, and I kind of missed them. So I was looking through the local newspaper, the Tuscaloosa News, and this advertisement jumped out at me, wolf cubs for sale, 96%. And so I just thought, well, this I've got to see. You know, I'd never heard of anything like this before. And I'm pretty much a sucker for sort of puppies, you know, let alone wolf cubs. I mean, you plonk me down in the middle of a group of puppies, then my fate is pretty much sealed, you know. So I think when I actually set off, as soon as I set off to have a look at these, I was always going to sort of bring one back with me.
The wolf was called Brennan, and I wondered if you could say how you began to establish a relationship with him. Was it very different from establishing a relationship with a dog, or was it similar?
Yes, I suppose the sort of broad contours of our relationship were established that afternoon. I brought him home. I mean, the first thing he did, I bring him into the living room, and the first thing he does is tear down all the curtains, you know, pretty much throughout the house. And I'm sort of running around after him, saying things like, "No, don't do that," and then trying to rehang the curtains. You know, eventually he makes his way out into the back garden, finds his way under the house. There's a little door there that was apparently open, and proceeds to tear down all the air conditioning pipes that were blowing up through the floor. So it turns out the wolves are, you know, being very intelligent, they get bored very quickly, and when they get bored, their default behavior is to eat things, basically. And I suppose the first rule of our relationship was that Brennan was never, ever to be left on his own for any sort of length of time. So I had to take him pretty much everywhere I went, and so I took him into work with me. I was a philosophy lecturer, so it was just about possible to do that. You know, and any socializing I did, he had to come along too. You know, if I went shopping, then I'd have to take him along in the car and run in as fast as I could, grab a few things, and run out again.
And what kind of reaction did you find that people had to you accompanied by a wolf?
It varied a lot from country to country. I mean, I suppose far and away the most relaxed country was France, where they're used to wolf hybrids at the least. You know, there's a lot of those around. So little kids would run up and throw their arms around his neck and say, you know, "Look, Mama, le chien loup," you know, the wolf dog. In Ireland, on the other hand, people were people are a little wary around big dogs, you know, most of the time there anyway. So there was a bit of consternation, I suppose, on certain occasions. I mean, probably the funniest thing I ever sort of saw in connection with this was walking in Wimbledon, actually, one day with him, and a kid says, "Look, Mummy, a wolf." And the mother says, "Don't be silly, it's a dog."
So, I mean, that sort of, I suppose, sort of points to the anomalousness, really, the fact that we, especially in Western Europe, we think of a wolf as something that's long gone. And I suppose that emphasizes the essential wildness of the animal that you were dealing with. And, you know, in case people get the impression this is just a sort of Marley and me with a more exotic species. I mean, the relationship you had with Brennan led you to think very deeply about all sorts of aspects of your own life and humanity in general.
Yes, yeah. That's one way of thinking about the book and what it's about is trying to work out, you know, what it is to be human by examining the various ways in which we differentiate ourselves from other creatures, especially wild creatures.
Can you say a bit about this distinction you make between what characterizes the human, you refer to as the simian, and the lupine or the canine?
The discussion of the simian versus the lupine or canine, and that was in connection with the idea that what separates us from other creatures is our intelligence, and I don't doubt that at all. We are, in most sort of important respects, a lot smarter. But what I wanted to attack and try and undermine was the idea that difference in intelligence adds up to better. So people tend to slide from we're different to we're better, and that's the sort of line I was attacking. And so what I tried to do was examine the idea of intelligence, specifically the intelligence of the apes like us, simian intelligence, and look at where it came from. I argued basically that at the core of our intelligence is built on more primitive abilities to manipulate and deceive our peers, our conspecifics. So while intelligence is obviously a good thing to have, it's not an unadulterated blessing. And I think one of the sort of striking features of humanity is that often what we regard as our sort of best side, our best aspects, and rightly so, derives from what's worst about us.
And conversely, I mean, we have throughout civilization attributed lots of negative characteristics to the wolf. And I guess you would say a lot of that is entirely unjustified.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. They're not sort of savage, vicious creatures at all. I mean, people often, typically actually confuse predation with aggression. Now, wolves are predators; they have to kill to eat. But predation is a very, very different thing from aggression. They're completely different sort of behavioral syndromes. And wolves are not aggressive, vicious, nasty creatures by any stretch of the imagination at all.
I mean, if you were to try and sort of sum up the fine qualities, the higher qualities, the qualities that you really admired in Brennan, how would you try to sum those up? I
think there's a certain sort of cleanness to them. They're characterized by an absence of malice, and so their lives are not based around or don't involve trying to manipulate those around them or trying to deceive them. They're straightforward. They're honest, and they're clean.
And would you say there was a difference of degree or a difference of kind between those qualities in Brennan the wolf and, say, dogs that you'd had in the past?
Yeah, I think degree. I think most differences are differences of degree, including the differences between us and other creatures.
Did he, in large measure, contribute to the person that you are now, would you say?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And he certainly contributed to the way I think, and I think I say in the book, the sort of thoughts that this book contains. I'm not sure. Well, I'm pretty sure they're not thoughts I could have thought if my life hadn't been of that sort, lived in such sort of close proximity with a wolf.
I mean, you put that in a very nice way in the book. You say these are the thoughts of the clearing.
Yeah.
That could say a little bit about what you meant by the thoughts of the clearing.
Right. Well, suppose you're this is actually a Heideggerian metaphor, the clearing. I use it in a slightly different way. But suppose you're in the forest and the trees are so close together you can't see anything because no light is coming in. You can't see the wood for the trees. The clearing is the place where the forest becomes lit up and you can see things for the first time. And I think the sort of life we lived. The two of us in such sort of proximity, I think that was the sort of clearing which allowed me to, which allowed certain thoughts to become lit up for me, if you like. Certain thoughts that, if I hadn't lived that sort of life, would have just been sort of in the dark of the wood. And the book is basically those thoughts.
I wondered, Mark, having made that journey, could you ever imagine yourself owning another wolf? Maybe owning is the wrong word, but sharing your life with another wolf, or does that belong to part of your past now, and you wouldn't ever seek to repeat that?
I hope it'll belong to my future as well. It's not the sort of thing that I could really do at the moment because it's become apparent to me in the last couple of years that young children are high maintenance in much the same way that a wolf is now, and I just don't think I have enough time or energy for both at the moment. But it's a sort of it's a dream for further down the road.